The Warrens' artifact room had always been a tomb for evil, a place where curses went to rot, and demons slept behind glass. But tonight, the silence felt wrong. Too heavy. Too aware. The air was thick, humming faintly like electricity before a storm. Every object, every mirror, mask, and relic, seemed to pulse in time with an unseen heartbeat. At the center of the room sat the sealed glass case. Inside it, motionless and pristine, was the hybrid doll, the unholy fusion of Chucky's sadistic grin and Annabelle's haunting stillness. Her porcelain face bore faint cracks like veins of lightning, and behind her glassy eyes lingered a spark of red, as if something deep within refused to die. For weeks, the Warrens had avoided entering the room at night. Even Lorraine, who had faced countless demons, could not bear the weight of what lay behind that glass. She'd told Ed that the doll was whispering to her, not through words, but through dreams. But tonight, Ed was gone. Lorraine sat alone in her study, rosary in hand, listening to the ticking of the clock echo through the quiet house. Each tick felt slower, heavier, until it stopped. A faint crack echoed from the basement. Her eyes shot open. "Not again," she whispered, clutching the cross. She moved down the stairs slowly, each step creaking under her trembling feet. The smell hit her first, a faint trace of burned plastic mixed with old perfume. Then the sound, a child's laugh. Faint, distorted, and somehow happy. It came from behind the door of the artifact room. Lorraine's breath hitched. She turned the key with shaking fingers and slowly opened the door. The dim light bulb above flickered once, then steadied. Everything looked normal, too normal. The cases were all closed. The relics still. Except the case in the center. A single hairline fracture stretched across the glass. Barely visible, but fresh. Lorraine's rosary beads slipped through her fingers. Oh, God. She stepped closer. The doll sat perfectly still. Her cracked cheek reflected the soft yellow light, eyes lifeless, yet somehow aware. Lorraine could feel it, the pulse of evil behind those painted lashes. Then she heard it. A whisper, faint as breath. "Miss me?" Her heart stopped. It was Chucky's voice. Clear. Mocking. Alive. Lorraine stumbled backward, crossing herself. You can't be back. You're sealed." The whisper changed, layered now, with Annabelle's eerie tone beneath it, like two voices speaking through the same mouth. "We never left." The bulb above burst with a pop. Darkness swallowed the room. Lorraine screamed and ran for the door, but it slammed shut before she could reach it. The temperature dropped instantly. The air crackled with energy as every cursed object in the room began to tremble. The mirror from Romania bled mist. The crooked man's toy started humming. The typewriter began typing on its own, over and over. "The curse awakens. The curse awakens." Lorraine turned toward the case again. The crack widened with a groan. Inside, the hybrid's eyes were open. Red. Glowing. Laughing. "Let me out, Granny," the Chucky voice hissed. "We've got work to do." Lorraine held up her cross, voice trembling. "By the power of God." The lights died completely. In the darkness came the sound of tiny footsteps. Plastic scraping against the floor. And then, from inches away, a whisper hot against her ear. "God's not here anymore." A bright flash filled the room, a surge of energy that threw Lorraine backward. The cases shattered one by one, sending shards flying. The relics screamed as if alive, releasing shadows that poured into the air, swirling around the hybrid doll. The power in the house surged, lights flickering wildly as thunder rumbled overhead. Lorraine crawled toward the exit, gasping, her vision blurring. She could see the doll, standing now, its porcelain body cracking, reforming, growing. Annabelle's white gown stained red, Chucky's jagged scars crawling across her face like veins. "Lorraine!" A voice shouted from upstairs, "Ed." He'd returned, hearing the chaos. She reached out weakly. "Ed, don't come in." But it was too late. The door burst open. Ed froze in the doorway, eyes wide with horror. The hybrid turned toward him, smiling. "Hi, I'm Chucky, wanna play?" The entire room went white. The last thing Lorraine heard was her husband's scream and the shattering of the containment glass. When the light faded, the room was empty. The case lay in shards. The doll was gone. And on the floor, scrawled in smeared black soot, were 3 words. "We are free." The storm outside had not stopped since that night. For 3 days, lightning clawed across the sky above Monroe, Connecticut, and rain hammered the town as if trying to drown something that should never have escaped. At first, no one noticed the change. A few flickering streetlights. Pets howling at shadows. Toys in children's bedrooms moving an inch to the left when no one was looking. But evil doesn't scream at first, it whispers. And this time, it was whispering everywhere. Across town, a young couple named Emily and Ryan Walker were moving into a cozy, old colonial house. The realtor had mentioned it once belonged to a museum curator, a man who'd collected oddities. The Walkers thought it was charming. Their daughter Lily, 6 years old, thought differently. The first night, she stood in her room, clutching her stuffed bunny, staring at the toy shelf. She whispered, "I don't like them. They're watching." Emily smiled gently. "Sweetheart, they're just dolls." But Lily didn't smile back. "No." One of them blinked. Emily followed her gaze. On the top shelf sat a porcelain doll they'd found in one of the moving boxes, something the realtor had forgotten to remove. It had glassy brown eyes, a pale cracked cheek, and a tiny red ribbon tied around its wrist. Emily frowned. "Creepy thing," she muttered, taking it off the shelf. She placed it in the hallway closet and shut the door tight. But when she turned off the light and tucked Lily in, she could have sworn she heard something shuffle in the dark. The next morning, the doorbell rang. 2 officers stood outside, Detective Hall and Deputy Ramsey. Their faces were pale, their uniforms soaked from the rain. "Sorry to disturb you, ma'am," Hall said, removing his hat. "We're checking the neighborhood. There was an incident near the old Warren property." Emily's stomach twisted. "What kind of incident?" The detective hesitated. "A break-in. House was empty, but something's missing." He didn't say what, but his partner muttered under his breath, "That damn doll." Hall shot him a glare. Emily blinked. "A doll?" Hall forced a smile. "Just routine. Let us know if you see anything unusual." That night, the rain intensified. Ryan snored softly beside Emily while the thunder rolled. But she couldn't sleep. The air felt wrong. Too still. A faint tap-tap-tap echoed from the hallway. She sat up, listening. It came again. Slow. Deliberate. Like small feet against wood. "Lily," she whispered, stepping out of bed. The hallway was dark, lit only by the blinking red light from the smoke detector. The sound came from the closet. She reached for the handle. Her hand hesitated. Then, click. The door creaked open on its own. Inside, the porcelain doll sat upright on the floor. Its head tilted toward her. The faintest grin spread across its cracked lips. Emily's breath caught. "What, how did you?" The doll's eyes moved. She screamed, slamming the door shut and backing away, heart racing. "Ryan! Ryan!" Her husband rushed out, half asleep. "What is it? What's wrong?" She pointed to the closet, trembling. "The doll. It moved." He opened the door and frowned. There's nothing here. The doll was gone. Lily's voice drifted from her room. Mommy. They ran to her. The little girl sat upright in bed, clutching her stuffed bunny. Her voice was small. The funny doll was in my room. She said she wants to play. Emily's face went cold. What did she look like, honey? She had pretty eyes. One red. One brown. And she talked funny. Like two voices at once. Across town, Detective Hall sat in his car outside the Warren property, staring at the storm. His partner Ramsey was on the phone. Sir, you're not gonna believe this, Ramsey whispered. We got 2 reports tonight. One from the Walkers, and another from a daycare. Kids saying the toys started talking. Hall pinched his nose. Same pattern. Same whispers. It's spreading. Ramsey lowered his voice. Sir, you think it's her? The Annabelle doll? Hall shook his head slowly. No. It's not her anymore. He glanced at the folder on the seat beside him, photos of the shattered glass case, Lorraine's blood on the floor, the scrawled message in soot. He muttered the words under his breath, "We are free." A sound came from the back seat. Click. He froze. Slowly turned his head. In the faint glow of the dashboard lights, he saw something sitting behind him, small, motionless. A porcelain face. A stitched grin. 2 glowing eyes. One red. One brown. And from the dark came the voice, low, amused, in perfect unison. Hey, copper, miss us? The car lights flickered. The storm roared. Then everything went black. By sunrise, Monroe wasn't the same town anymore. The storm had stopped, but what followed was worse, an unnatural stillness that made the air feel thick, as if the world was holding its breath. Radios hissed static. Clocks froze at 3:03 a.m. And every mirror in town, every shiny surface, seemed to shimmer with a faint reflection that wasn't quite right. No one noticed it at first. Not until the dolls started moving. At Lily Walker's elementary school, the morning began like any other, children laughing, backpacks unzipped, the smell of crayons and glue. But in the playroom, where shelves overflowed with toys, something had changed. The dolls were arranged differently. The teacher frowned, setting down her coffee. Who moved these? No one answered. The dolls sat in a perfect circle on the rug, their glassy eyes staring at an empty spot in the middle, like they were waiting for something. Then, all at once, every head turned toward her. The teacher screamed. Detective Hall woke with a start in his police cruiser, drenched in sweat. His partner Ramsey was gone. The windshield was fogged with words drawn by unseen fingers, playtime. Hall stumbled out of the car, gasping. The Warren house loomed ahead, its windows boarded and dark. He could still hear Lorraine's voice echoing in his memory, if it ever gets out, there's no stopping it. He drew his gun and flashlight, stepping toward the basement entrance. The artifact room door was open. The air inside was colder than ice. Hall scanned the room, breathing hard. Every case had been smashed. Objects lay scattered, mirrors cracked, relics overturned. The walls were smeared with faint handprints, like something had crawled along them. Then he saw it. In the center of the floor, small, motionless, perfect, sat the hybrid doll. Chucky's grin. Annabelle's eyes. Both glowing faintly. His finger tightened on the trigger. Don't move, he muttered, voice shaking. Don't you dare move. The doll didn't move. It didn't have to. Because behind him, something else did. The mirror on the wall rippled. A reflection of Hall twisted and distorted, its mouth stretching impossibly wide. The shadow stepped out from the glass, his own reflection, smiling back at him with red eyes. Hall fired. Once. Twice. 3 times. The bullets tore through the air, shattering the reflection. The doll didn't even flinch. Instead, a voice filled the room. Dual-toned. Mocking. Too familiar. You can't shoot what's already inside you, detective. Hall dropped the gun, shaking. What are you? The hybrid's head tilted, plastic joints creaking. We're evolution, baby. Flesh and porcelain. Soul and curse. A match made in hell. Then, the lights went out. Across town, chaos spread like infection. The daycare incident became front-page news before noon. Parents rushed to pull their children out, but every doll, every toy, every plush animal seemed to follow them, appearing in new places, whispering. Across town, chaos spread like infection. The daycare incident became front-page news before noon. Parents rushed to pull their children out, but every doll, every toy, every plush animal seemed to follow them, appearing in new places, whispering in children's voices. Street cameras caught glimpses, a doll dragging itself across a sidewalk, head twitching. Another sitting at a bus stop. A third, standing motionless in a dark window, watching. By nightfall, the town was covered in them. Storefront displays rearranged themselves into mocking smiles. Toy aisles in supermarkets echoed with faint laughter after closing. And people began to disappear. In her home, Emily Walker locked every door and window. Lily slept fitfully beside her, clutching her stuffed bunny. Ryan, she whispered to her husband, "What's happening?" He stared out the window, pale. The news says it's some kind of prank, but... A faint giggle cut him off. They turned toward the hallway. Lily's closet door creaked open. The porcelain doll stepped out. But it wasn't the same one from before. This one's eyes burned brighter, its limbs twitching like a puppet being controlled by invisible strings. And in its hand, it held a smaller doll, Chucky's face crudely stitched onto a baby toy. Emily froze. Oh, God. The doll's mouth moved. 2 voices at once. Hi, I'm Annabelle Chucky. Wanna play a new game? The lights flickered. Every toy in the room turned its head toward them. Ryan lunged forward, grabbed the doll, and hurled it against the wall. It shattered, porcelain fragments scattering. But the laughter didn't stop. The shards began to move, sliding back together, reforming the face. The eyes lit again. Lily began to scream. Emily grabbed her daughter, running for the door. But as she reached the living room, every doll in the house, Lily's, Emily's childhood keepsakes, even a broken nutcracker, was standing in a perfect line across the floor, blocking the exit. And all of them were smiling. At 11:59 p.m., the entire town of Monroe lost power. Security footage captured only one clear image before the blackout. Hundreds of dolls standing motionless in the rain, facing outward, as if guarding something invisible in the center. A small figure. Child-sized. Porcelain and plastic fused together. Its mismatched eyes glowing in the dark. It began with the sound of laughter. Not joyous, but jagged. A laughter that bled through walls, echoing from dark corners and empty streets. The townspeople of Monroe had already locked themselves inside. No one dared to go near the windows anymore. The streetlights flickered like dying fireflies, and the night seemed to breathe, slow, heavy, alive. At precisely midnight, the silence broke. Every clock in town struck 12 at once, even the broken ones. Church bells rang though the church had long been abandoned. Dogs barked and then fell silent. And then came the footsteps, hundreds of them. Tiny, clicking, synchronized steps. The dolls were marching. Detective Hall crouched behind his police cruiser, flashlight trembling in his grip. His partner, Ramsey, hadn't answered the radio since last night. He'd seen the footage, the line of dolls, the shadows in the storm. It didn't make sense. None of it did. "Dispatch, this is Hall," he whispered, his voice cracking. "If anyone's still out there, we need backup on Main and River. There's something out here." Static answered him. Then, a faint voice whispered through the channel. "You shouldn't have come back." Hall froze. That wasn't Dispatch. That was his voice. His own voice, but darker, deeper, mocking him from inside the radio. He dropped it, stumbled backward, and the beam of his flashlight landed on something ahead. A child's doll stood in the center of the street. Soaked by the rain. Head tilted. Grinning. Behind it, dozens more emerged from the shadows, cracked porcelain, stitched cloth, melted plastic, an army of forgotten faces, each carrying a fragment of Chucky's madness and Annabelle's curse. Hall lifted his gun. "Stay back," he breathed. "I'm warning you." The dolls kept coming. Then one of them spoke, a voice half sweet, half serpent. "Playtime isn't over." From the rooftops, Emily watched the horror unfold. She and Lily had escaped their home, taking shelter in an old bookstore near the town square. Every window was boarded. The lights were off. Lily clutched her mother's arm, whispering, "Mommy, are they gone?" Emily didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the street below. The dolls were everywhere, lining the sidewalks, climbing lampposts, dragging objects across the asphalt. Some carried knives, others shards of glass. One held a child's shoe. Another cradled a doll-sized crucifix, upside down. But at the center of the parade was it. The hybrid. Annabelle Chucky. Its porcelain face gleamed under the moonlight, streaked with cracks. Chucky's stitched mouth grinned, but Annabelle's cold, lifeless eyes stared straight ahead. Its tiny hands clutched a miniature dagger, engraved with runes that pulsed red like living veins. It didn't just walk, it glided, as though something invisible carried it. Every few steps, the hybrid would stop, lift its head, and whisper words that rippled through the air. The other dolls would freeze. Twitch, then move in perfect unison again. It was leading them somewhere. Inside the bookstore, the old radio flickered to life on its own. Static. Then a voice. "The Warrens are coming." Emily grabbed the device, panicked. "Hello? Who is this?" "It's too late," the voice rasped. "You can't stop what's already been born." The radio went dead. Across town, Lorraine Warren sat in the back of the car as Ed drove through the rain-soaked highway. Her eyes were shut, hands clasped around a rosary that burned cold against her skin. "I can still feel it," she murmured. "It's growing. Feeding." Ed's knuckles were white on the wheel. "We'll stop it. We always do." Lorraine turned to him slowly. "No, Ed. You don't understand. This time it's not a haunting." She opened her eyes, glassy with dread. "It's a creation." Back in Monroe, the dolls reached the town square. The hybrid stopped at the fountain, the same fountain where, decades ago, the town had celebrated its founding. Its water was now black and stagnant. The dolls surrounded it, forming a perfect circle. The hybrid raised its dagger and drove it into the ground. The earth shook. Cracks split the pavement, spiderwebbing through the streets. Lights flickered in every window. Car alarms wailed in the distance, then abruptly stopped. The sound of 1,000 whispers filled the air, voices from the cursed objects in the Warrens' vault, echoing across the vale. And then, from beneath the fountain, something answered. A deep hum, low and ancient. The hybrid's head tilted upward, its grin widening as the ground glowed crimson beneath its feet. All around town, dolls began to scream, a chorus of distorted laughter and pain. They weren't dying, they were transforming. Their porcelain flesh melted into wax. Their glass eyes turned black. Their smiles stretched wider, their limbs twisting into grotesque shapes. The night parade became a living nightmare, a procession of cursed creatures, each more horrifying than the last. At the center, Annabelle Chucky lifted its arms and whispered one word that echoed across every shadow in Monroe. "Rise." And the darkness obeyed. The night Monroe fell silent, Tiffany Valentine woke up screaming. Her Hollywood mansion glowed under the pale California moonlight, but something was wrong. The air was cold, unnaturally cold, and the house smelled faintly of burnt plastic and old blood. The mirror across from her bed shimmered, reflecting not her face but Chucky's twisted grin, stitched and smiling. "Miss me, Tiff?" the reflection sneered. She gasped, stumbling back. "Chucky." The lights flickered. A giggle crawled through the room, two voices, overlapping. One familiar, the other hollow and distant. "Come find me, baby. I've been dying to play again." The mirror cracked, splitting her reflection in half. Tiffany's heart pounded. She reached out, trembling fingers brushing the cold surface, and for an instant she saw it, the hybrid's face, Chucky's eyes inside Annabelle's shell, smiling from beyond the glass. Then everything went black. Hours later, Tiffany sat in her car, engine roaring down a lonely highway toward Connecticut. She hadn't seen the Warrens in years, not since the time she'd helped cover up a certain trail of accidents. But tonight wasn't about hiding bodies or cleaning messes. This was about Chucky. Her Chucky. The radio buzzed with emergency alerts. Monroe County declared under federal lockdown due to unexplained mass hysteria. Tiffany smirked bitterly. "Hysteria, my ass." She pressed harder on the gas pedal. "Hold on, baby. Mommy's coming." When she arrived in Monroe, it didn't look like a town anymore. Cars sat abandoned on the roads. Storefronts were shattered. Dull limbs littered the sidewalks like battlefield remains. The air reeked of ozone and copper. Somewhere in the distance, faint laughter echoed, children's laughter, warped and layered, rising and falling like a lullaby from hell. Tiffany parked near the ruined square and stepped out. Her high heels clicked against the wet pavement. "Chucky," she shouted into the silence. "If this is your idea of a prank, you've gone too far even for you." No response. Only the faint whisper of wind, and then, a shadow moved behind her. She spun around, blade in hand. A doll stood there. Porcelain face. Familiar blue overalls. A crude red heart painted over its chest, cracked and bleeding dust. Her breath hitched. "No, no, you're not him." The doll smiled. "Ain't I, though?" Its voice was perfect. Chucky's voice. But there was something else beneath it, soft, feminine, sinister. "Annabelle." Tiffany's knife trembled. "What did she do to you?" The hybrid doll stepped closer. "She didn't do anything. We're one now. She's the mind, I'm the muscle. And you, my sweet Tiff." Its porcelain eyes shimmered red. "You're our next masterpiece." Tiffany ran. She ducked into an alley, breath ragged, clutching her knife. Behind her, the hybrid's laughter bounced off the walls, every echo overlapping until it felt like the whole town was laughing. Her heel snapped. She fell, scrambling into an abandoned diner. The place reeked of decay, overturned stools, shattered glass, blood smeared across the counter. The jukebox clicked on by itself, playing an old love song through static, "You're just too good to be true." "Chucky," she whispered, tears streaking her mascara. "You always loved this song." "Still do." The voice came from behind her. Tiffany turned slowly. The hybrid doll sat on a barstool, tiny legs dangling, smiling wide. But now, something in its eyes flickered, a glint of recognition, of struggle. "Baby," she whispered, "I know you're still in there. Fight her. You're stronger than this thing." The doll tilted its head. Its grin faltered for a second. Then, in a rasping whisper that made her blood freeze, it said. She's not a thing. She's forever. The diner windows shattered at once. Dozens of dolls poured in, crawling across the floor and walls, glass crunching under their limbs. Their faces were blank, some melted, others eyeless, but all of them whispered her name in perfect unison. Tiffany. She swung her knife, kicking and slashing as they climbed onto her. Get off me. One bit her arm. Another yanked her hair. The hybrid doll jumped onto the counter, watching with eerie calm. Love hurts, it said sweetly. Tiffany screamed as a doll clawed her cheek. Blood ran down her neck. She hurled one into the fryer and heard it hiss, the scent of burning plastic filling the room. Then she locked eyes with the hybrid. You want me? She snarled. Come get me, you little freak. It leapt. They collided, crashing through the diner window. Rain poured down, lightning flashing above them as Tiffany pinned the doll to the street. Her hand trembled, knife raised. Chucky, if you can hear me. I love you. The doll's eyes flickered. For just one heartbeat, she saw him, her Chucky, fighting behind those cold, demonic eyes. Tiff, run. Then Annabelle's voice drowned him out. He's mine. The doll's tiny hand shot up, grabbing Tiffany's throat with inhuman strength. Her knife dropped from her fingers. The hybrid smiled. Till death do us part. And the world went dark. The storm rolled in without warning, black clouds twisting like living things, lightning bleeding red across the sky. Monroe had become a graveyard of lights. The streets shimmered with rain, and in every reflection, something moved that wasn't really there. Inside an old church at the edge of town, Ed and Lorraine Warren stood before the altar. Candles burned low, their flames bending toward the door, as if the wind were coming from inside. Lorraine's eyes were closed, her hands trembling over her rosary. It's not just the dolls anymore, she whispered. It's learning. It's spreading. Ed checked his crucifix and the shotgun he'd blessed with holy water. Spreading how? Her eyes snapped open. Through people. A scream shattered the night. They ran outside, the rain pelting their faces like needles, and froze. At the base of the hill, in the flooded street below, a crowd of townspeople stood motionless. Dozens of them. Men, women, even children, all soaking wet, their heads tilted at unnatural angles. Their eyes glowed faintly red. And every single one of them held a doll. Lorraine gripped Ed's arm. Dear God. The people began to move in perfect unison, stepping forward like marionettes on invisible strings. Their mouths opened, not to scream, not to cry, but to laugh. A chorus of mixed pitches, identical and hollow. Ed raised the shotgun. Stay behind me. The nearest man, a butcher still wearing his apron, lunged forward, face twisting into a grin too wide for a human jaw. Ed fired. The blast echoed across the churchyard. The man fell, but his body didn't stay still. It twitched, convulsed, then sat back up, head snapping upright as if pulled by unseen wires. From the shadows, a child's voice giggled. Can't kill what's already mine. Inside the town's diner, Tiffany woke up to thunder. Her body ached, her throat burned, and the shattered glass sparkled around her like a cruel halo. The hybrid doll was gone. She dragged herself to her feet, blood dripping from her cheek, and stumbled toward the window. Outside, the dolls were marching again, but this time, they weren't alone. People walked beside them. Blank-faced. Silent. Controlled. She shuddered. Oh, Chucky, what the hell have you done? Something moved behind her. She turned. A waitress stood in the doorway, her head cocked, a porcelain crack running across her cheek. Her eyes, red. Her voice, both human and doll-like. Coffee, sweetheart. Tiffany backed away. You're not real. The waitress smiled, teeth clicking like dull joints. None of us are anymore. Her body jerked violently, arms twisting in impossible angles as the thing inside her laughed. Tiffany grabbed a broken bottle and swung. The glass shattered across the woman's face, porcelain and blood flying in all directions, but the creature didn't fall. It simply turned its head all the way backward, giggling through the shards lodged in its skin. Mommy said not to play rough. Back at the church, the Warrens retreated inside, barricading the doors as thunder roared outside. Ed pushed a heavy pew against the entrance, his breath coming in sharp bursts. "We're not dealing with a haunting, Lorraine. This is an infestation." Lorraine's hands shook as she lit more candles. "No. It's possession. But not like before. It's transferring essence through objects, through contact." She looked down at her crucifix. The metal was beginning to rust before her eyes. "The hybrid isn't killing," she whispered. "It's merging. Turning the living into vessels." Outside, the laughter grew louder. Dozens of voices chanting a single word, over and over, until the walls began to vibrate. "Playtime. Playtime. Playtime." Then the stained glass windows shattered inward. The hybrid stood outside, framed by lightning, holding Tiffany's knife. Its porcelain skin glistened like wet bone, and Chucky's grin stretched beneath Annabelle's hollow eyes. It pointed the blade toward the church doors and spoke in a voice that made the candles flicker out. "Open up, Mom and Dad. I've got a gift." The pews slid across the floor by themselves. Ed and Lorraine braced against them, shouting prayers, but the force on the other side was immense, like a hurricane made of laughter and screams. The doors blew open. The hybrid stepped inside, followed by its army, dolls and human puppets alike. Lightning flashed, illuminating their faces, stitched smiles, cracked glass eyes, dripping mouths whispering words in Latin and something older. Lorraine raised her rosary, shouting above the noise, "In the name of Christ." The hybrid laughed. "Christ doesn't live here anymore." The church bells rang violently, though no one touched them. The altar caught fire. The walls bled candle wax that ran like veins. Ed fired his shotgun again, but this time, the hybrid didn't even flinch. It lifted its hand, and the gun turned red hot, bursting apart in his grasp. Lorraine screamed as the flames climbed higher, wrapping the crucifix in black smoke. The hybrid turned its head toward her, smiling sweetly. "You can't stop a game that never ends." Then, with a snap of its tiny fingers, the storm outside roared into the church, swallowing everything in darkness. When Lorraine opened her eyes again, she was lying on the floor. The storm had passed. But the pews were gone. The walls were gone. The church was gone. And in the center of the empty field where it once stood was a single doll. Porcelain face. Stitched grin. Holding a crucifix, upside down. The world smelled of ashes. The town of Monroe was gone, swallowed by silence and smoke. No sirens, no birds, no life. Only the sound of wind dragging doll limbs across cracked pavement. In the middle of it all, the Warrens' old house still stood, blackened but unbroken. Inside, the basement door hung open. The artifact room waited. Lorraine stood at the top of the stairs, trembling, flashlight flickering in her hand. Her hair was matted with soot, her crucifix charred, but her voice did not shake when she whispered. "Ed, we finish it tonight." Behind her, Ed nodded. His face was pale, but his eyes were steel. Together, they descended into the dark. The artifact room was no longer just a room. It pulsed. The walls moved subtly, as if breathing. Every cursed object, the mirror, the music box, the samurai armor, the monkey toy, glowed faintly red. They were awake. And in the center, sitting on the old pedestal where Annabelle's case once stood, was the hybrid doll. Porcelain face cracked. Stitched mouth grinning. Eyes flickering between glass and human. A faint humming filled the air, a lullaby in reverse. "You came," the hybrid said, its voice layered, innocent and venomous. "We missed you." Lorraine stepped forward, holding her rosary high. "This ends now." The doll laughed softly. "End? Oh, sweet lady, you still don't understand. We don't end. We multiply." It raised one small hand, and the objects around them began to twitch, the mirror rippled like water, the armor shifted its head, and the music box wound itself, playing a discordant melody that made Ed's ears bleed. Lorraine shouted, "In the name of God, I command you." "God?" the doll interrupted, tilting its head. "God's in the mirror now. He's been watching." The cracked mirror behind it reflected not Lorraine, but her, kneeling, praying, eyes hollow. Ed lifted a flask of holy water, but before he could throw it, the hybrid's laughter deepened. The walls pulsed violently, and dozens of other dolls, Annabelle's echoes, Chucky's clones, crawled from the shadows. Each had a different face, a different voice, but the same eyes. Red. Glowing. Alive. They surrounded the Warrens in silence. Then, together, they began to whisper. "Seal the door. Seal the door. Seal the door." Ed looked at Lorraine, panic in his voice. "They're mocking us." "No," she whispered. "They're warning us." The hybrid climbed down from its pedestal, porcelain feet clicking on the floor. It stood inches from Lorraine now, tilting its head as if studying her soul. "You think you can trap us again, don't you?" it murmured. "But you forget. I was born in your house." Lorraine stepped back. "You are not Chucky. You are not Annabelle. You're a curse, a lie." The hybrid smiled wider, cracks spreading across its face. "Then I'm the truth that lies become." It snapped its fingers. The lights went out. For a moment, only the music box played. Then came the screams, hundreds of them, not from outside, but from the objects themselves. Every cursed soul inside the room screamed through whatever vessel they were trapped in. The samurai armor turned its sword toward Ed. The mirror showed Lorraine aging, decaying, dying over and over. The typewriter on the table began typing words by itself. "They opened the door. They opened the door. They opened the door." Ed grabbed Lorraine's arm. "The seal. The sigil, we need to rewrite it." Lorraine reached into her satchel, pulling out a vial of blessed oil and a small dagger. She carved a circle on the floor, chanting rapidly, her voice trembling. The hybrid watched, amused. "You still think your words matter? My words are the seal now." The dolls began chanting again, faster, louder. "Seal the door. Seal the door. Seal the door." The air turned black, thick like ink. Lorraine's eyes filled with tears as the circle ignited in golden fire. The walls screamed. The hybrid shrieked, its porcelain face melting and reforming, flickering between Chucky's rage and Annabelle's dead calm. "Now!" Ed shouted. Lorraine pressed her rosary into the flame. "By the power of the holy." The hybrid lunged. It grabbed her wrist, tiny fingers searing her flesh. Its mouth opened, impossibly wide, revealing darkness within. "You can't seal what's already inside you," it hissed. Lorraine screamed as the hybrid's eyes blazed with infernal light. Ed fired a flare directly into its face. The explosion shook the room. The hybrid fell back, shrieking, as the seal completed, the golden circle enclosing it in blinding light. The cursed objects wailed as one. Then, silence. The room collapsed in on itself, imploding in a burst of crimson energy. Hours later. The fire trucks came. The reporters came. The government sealed off Monroe again. And deep beneath the rubble of the Warrens' house, a single case stood unbroken. Inside it, the hybrid doll sat motionless. Half its face porcelain. Half plastic. Eyes closed. A plaque below read: "Do not open, Containment Seal 2.0. Lorraine, bandaged and pale, watched from afar. Her whisper barely rose above the wind. "It's over." Ed squeezed her hand gently. "You sure?" She didn't answer. Her eyes drifted toward the case. Inside, the doll's eyelids slowly fluttered open. And for the briefest moment, both voices, Chucky's and Annabelle's, whispered together. "Hi, I'm still here." The case rattled. Then all the lights went out. The end. Evil never dies. It just waits to be played with again.